Good day and welcome. I'm Michelle, and in this painting, I'm sharing my process of how I painted this piece entitled Empty Spaces, a view of Mary Curtis Park looking southwest. This video is not intended to be a tutorial per se, but if you have any questions, let me know in the comments section and I'll do my best to answer. For this piece, I'm painting on a primed wood panel that is 18 inches high by 24 inches wide, or 46 centimeters by 61 centimeters. For this painting, I'm using oils. And to start, I block in the colors and shapes to establish my horizon line and placement of the trees. Now, I actually created this piece sometime last year in 2020 during the first pandemic lockdown. So the piece and what I was feeling during its creation was affected by my experience at that time. The scene is based on my memory of previous visits to the park over the years, sketches, and photographs. As I look back and share my thought process with you, I'm wondering, how will I view this and my other works created during this time, 10, maybe 20 years later? Like many others, I feel that everything created during the pandemic will be more reflective, perhaps taking on an intimate, emotional, or societal view as we continue to experience the pandemic's effects. What do you think? How do you feel that your art or craft has changed? In my work, I try to find inspiration in my immediate surroundings, in nature or family or friends. I'm interested in communicating a sense of place, a time of day, or a feeling such as the warmth of a sunset. Establishing a connection with the viewer is what I'm looking for when I create a piece. And this painting is no different in that aspect. Here I am establishing the tree in the foreground. Whenever I go out for walks, I take note of my surroundings, observing the different types of trees, from the texture of the trunks, the size of the tree canopies, the leaf shape, even the age and the health. In the area where I live, there are some older maple, chestnut, and pine trees. All are beautiful and unique to me. Trees create oxygen and are considered the lungs of the earth, I feel, so it's no wonder that I give such importance to them in my work. I begin to paint in the basic shape and texture of the tree canopy using a blend of blues, yellows, and a touch of red. For this painting, I'm using a limited palette, and the colors I'm using are titanium white, lemon yellow, cadmium yellow, rubine red, cadmium red, cobalt blue, cerulean blue, ultramarine blue, burnt umber, and black. Here you can see I'm building in the layers a little bit at a time, establishing the shapes and how I want the scene to look. For me, I like to develop all aspects of the painting gradually at the same time, so I tend to jump back and forth in the piece. Working this way allows me to see all the shapes and colors in relation to each other and how they evolve. Because for me, it's important in creating a balanced piece. Also, I feel it allows me flexibility to make changes along the way if I need to. I tend to work with a variety of different size brushes. In the beginning stages, I will use a large size brush to block in basic shapes and then move down in size as I build the scene using smaller brushes for refining and finishing detail. This painting is part of a larger series depicting various scenes of Mary Curtis Park, which is located in Toronto, Canada. Mary Curtis Park is such a lovely public space nestled in the city's West End on Lake Ontario. The park has an abundance of small wildlife and native plants. It has a beach, and it's also connected to bike and walking trails, and I find it's a nice spot for viewing migratory birds. This area of the park that I'm painting is one of my favorite areas that I love to visit. It's a view looking westward towards Mississauga. Over time, my goal is to build a series of works depicting various park scenes and put them on display. Here, I'm painting some of the midtones and highlights. And this is what it is, working back and forth, building up the layers and the shapes. I'm not looking to recreate the scene exactly, since I am working based on how I felt in that moment, standing in that particular spot, taking in the sights, the sounds, the smells, the warmth of the air. But I'm also trying to recollect the trees, what time of the year it was. The scene depicted here was late spring to early summer. The leaves have not fully formed yet, but it was a bright and sunny day, and I was trying to capture that moment. That feeling of things coming to life, things starting to bloom. Now I'm starting to work on the background trees, starting to establish a sense of distance in the park and space. One thing I should mention, if you ever want to establish a sense of depth in painting, there are a number of ways of which you can achieve that. One way to achieve depth is scale or size relation between objects. For example, the objects that are closest to you tend to be larger in size, such as the tree and the bushes in the foreground of this painting. And as objects move farther away, they tend to get smaller, such as the trees in the middle and the background. Another way to achieve depth is through color. For example, the objects in the foreground tend to be more richer and deeper in color, whereas objects that move farther away tend to be lighter in value or bluer in color due to the increased atmosphere in the sky. This is known as atmospheric perspective. How to establish depth in paintings could be a potential topic for a future video. So if you're interested in hearing more about that, let me know, and maybe I can go in a little bit more detail. At this point, I'm refining detail using my number 2 round brush, getting a sense of light by adding some highlights using a bit of titanium white and lemon yellow to the main tree and shrubbery at the base. I'm not trying to add too much detail to the leaves in the main tree. However, looking back on this, I can see that I may have added a bit too much detail. Today, I can see how it would take a different approach, but this is what painting is. This is what doing something creative is. It's a process of discovery or learning. With art, for me, it's the journey that counts, not necessarily the destination. And with trying to push your abilities, you learn something new, and then you adopt what you've learned into the next painting. It's how you develop your craft. Here, I'm establishing the shadows underneath the tree and building out the pathway a bit more. Because so much of the foreground is in shadow, I didn't want to make it too dark. I wanted the viewer to still see some of the detail. Again, you need to allow yourself the flexibility to make changes in your work as needed. Take a bit of artistic license, especially if you're working from multiple sources, such as what I'm doing here. From memory, visits to the park, sketches, and photographs. I'm highlighting some of the texture in the grass and the path in the foreground so you have a sense of place. Another thing I like to keep in mind when painting is where the viewer is standing within the scene and where you want them to look. I wanted the viewer to get a sense that they are walking down the path, emerging from the cool shaded area of the trees and the forest and into the open field where it's bright and warm. Compositionally, the path's direction guides the viewer's eye, inviting them to the open field. The main tree and the bush and shrubbery on each side of the path also helps to frame the painting and guide the viewer. Well, here's the final result. If you've made it this far, thank you, and I hope you enjoyed this video. To learn more about my work, visit my website, michellemontague.com. You can also find me on Instagram and Twitter. Until next time, take care, stay safe, and good day.